they have total disregard of civilian life and total disregard of international laws that govern conflicts. And those are really mounting to crime against humanity. And we call on everyone to support us on stopping this really madness and awful situation in Sudan.
One side in Sudan's violent power struggle says it's agreed a 72-hour ceasefire. The move by the Rapid Support Forces coincides with Eid, with humanitarian corridors being opened to allow citizens to get away. Foreign Secretary James Cleverly is cutting short his Pacific tour and will fly back to Britain to keep across the situation where more than 300 people have died in the last week. Dr. Husam Majamar is the founder of Sudan's Doctors for Human Rights. He's in London, his family's in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan. Dr. Majamar, thank you for joining us this morning. Husam,
thank you for having me this morning.
We just had a slight delay on the line there, but yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
First of all, I would just like your response to this news of a potential ceasefire, certainly from one side of this really violent struggle. Sudan's army has not yet commented. How do you feel about that? How optimistic are you for that?
I'm afraid I'm not so optimistic about it, because we had some experience of short-lived ceasefire. Actually, when the ceasefires are declared, more violence are seen on the street, and more deaths and casualties. So I'm not really optimistic about it because of the history of those ceasefire. But we never lose hope, and we're hoping that this ceasefire this time holds.
How would you describe the situation in Sudan right now? That the fighting has been violent and has gone on for days. What do you understand about what is happening on the ground?
What's happening on the ground is actually a disastrous situation. It is a dire situation where people are trying to flee their home. And my own family were fleeing the house in north of Khartoum capital to nearby villages. And we were going through a really emotionally draining experience of worrying about them fleeing under the fire of Air Force and heavy shelling. But, luckily for us, they got in a safe place now. But many families are not in that situation. And some people have lost their life while trying to flee. So the situation is still really dire and a really bad situation. I just had a report from my colleague in Sudan, from the preliminary committee of Sudanese Doctors Union. There are 74 hospitals in the capitals. Only 22 hospitals are operating now, and mainly they are operating partially because of the lack of the medical personnel and the lack of supplies, water and electricity cut. The 9 of those hospitals who went out of services were bombed, and 19 were forcibly evacuated. And we had like 5 ambulances were being attacked. So this is really an army fractions where they have total disregard of civilian life and total disregard of international laws that govern conflicts. And those are really mounting to crime against humanity. And we call on everyone to support us on stopping this really madness and awful situation in Sudan.
We are glad to hear that your family have got to a place of safety. What sort of conditions are people in the country and in Khartoum, what are they dealing with at the moment? And by that I mean access to water and electricity and things.
Yeah, so now I was speaking to one of my cousins yesterday because I had another bereavement that one of my cousins passed away here, and like 2 days ago. So I'm happy to cope with that as well.
Oh gosh.
So so it's So even having to the bereavement for the person who died here, it was really difficult to have any ceremony. We normally have a long ceremony for people when they passed away. But he was saying that people in his area, because there was really heavy fighting there, left their homes mostly, and people who remained behind, those are, elderly people who could not move, and, kids and pregnant ladies and things like that. And he said there's an anarchy and a lot of looting. Even, people are getting hungry and desperate now. And those houses which are left behind, they have been looted. Shops have been looted, and it's like a complete anarchy in that place in the center of Khartoum. So I think that's what follows from any conflict like that, where people are not paying enough attention to it. I think this has to stop and stop now, and every effort should be made to stop this violation. And those two army generals have a long history of human rights violation, and I think it is time now to bring them to account and for the the atrocity that they committed in Darfur to start with, and they are really known to have been committed a lot of atrocity, both of them, and we call for them to be brought to justice, and there shouldn't be any impunity on dealing with them. At the same time, we call on the international community to exert more strong action against them. They have been really hampered and by the fact people are not agreeing to what step we should take with those two generals. They are no longer partners in peace because of the history of their behavior. And I think it's a time now we should use stick rather than carrot with them.
Thank you very much. Thank you for speaking to us this morning under such difficult circumstances as well. So we appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. And all the best to you. That is Dr. Husam El-Mugamar, the founder of Sudan's Doctors for Human Rights, speaking to us from London. His family is in Khartoum, and his colleagues indeed are in Khartoum as well, reporting back on the dire situation there, one that he describes with anarchy and looting.